Hello, my name is Jeffrey Catalano. This is my final project presentation on writer-director Paul Schrader and what I and many others consider to be his most important films. I made Schrader the focus of my project because he happens to be my screenwriting hero. I wrote an essay for my final project because I like to write, and I believe that it was the best way to convey my thesis. The quote on the screen is from the film Taxi Driver. Schrader's Man in a Room and his God's Lonely Man films are one and the same and feature the same loose archetype in the lead role. I'll explain more about this later. My project heavily favors the auteur theory, which means that I think that Schrader is the foremost author of the films he directs. In most cases, he writes the films he directs. My thesis is Schrader's Man in a Room and God's Lonely Man films offer a masterclass and subjective point of view on undoubtedly his most personal works. The writer-director was born in 1946 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He was raised Calvinist and grew up in a strict religious household. He did not see his first film until he was a teenager, and that was the Elvis Presley film Wild in the Country. After high school, Schrader went to Calvin University and initially had plans to be a minister. However, his interest in film grew exponentially, and he started taking classes at Columbia and got into UCLA's film program. There, he became obsessed with European art house cinema and the work of French filmmaker Robert Bresson. Before he graduated from UCLA, he wrote a book of film theory called Transcendental Style in Film. After his time at UCLA, Schrader worked as a film critic like the woman who helped him get into UCLA, the famous Pauline Kael. She's the one in the picture. Schrader left film criticism for the film business and wrote his first script, The Yakuza, with his older brother, Leonard. The screenwriter's second produced script, Taxi Driver, changed his life and career forever. Schrader claims to have written the script in 10 or 15 days. When he wrote it in his mid-20s, he was at a very low point in his life. He was an alcoholic, insomniac, and porn addict. Essentially, he was like Travis Bickle, the lead character in Taxi Driver. He was isolated, a man in a room. Taxi Driver is directed by Martin Scorsese. After the film came out in 1976, Schrader and Scorsese worked together 3 more times. Blue Collar and Hardcore were the first 2 films Schrader made as a writer-director in the late 1970s. In both films, he was still trying to find his voice as a filmmaker. The first Man in a Room film Schrader directed himself was 1980's American Gigolo. It's about a vain gigolo in his 30s who, despite his wealth and good looks, is just as lonely as Travis Bickle. Schrader's 1992 film Light Sleeper is as bleak as Taxi Driver. It's about a middle-aged drug dealer who feels trapped in the drug trade because he doesn't know what else he can do. Like Bickle, he's a man without a purpose. The writer-director's Man in a Room saga took on a new form with 2017's First Reformed. The film about a lonely pastor who slowly loses his grip on reality is possibly the best film Schrader has ever made as a director. Like in Taxi Driver, you're pulled into the pastor's lonely world. The film kicked off what Schrader came to call the God's Lonely Man trilogy. Schrader's second God's Lonely Man film, 2021's The Card Counter, is about a gambler who once committed human atrocities. Schrader's last God's Lonely Man film, Master Gardener, was released just last year in 2022. It's about a horticulturist with a dark, hate-filled past. Schrader's Man in a Room films are largely autobiographical. The films all chart the filmmaker's lonely male archetype at a different point in his life, in his 20s, 30s, and 40s. Schrader's God Only Man films are much more spiritual in tone than his Man in a Room films, and they're Schrader's attempt to experiment with a cinematic style he first identified at 24, transcendental style. In the Man in a Room and God's Only Man films, Schrader makes viewers empathize with the most unlikable of characters. Travis Bickle of Taxi Driver is a killer. Julian Kay of American Gigolo is self-obsessed. John Latour of Light Sleeper is a loser. William Tell of The Card Counter committed human atrocities. Schrader's filmography is incredibly extensive, but his most personal films be the ones he's most remembered for. And here are my sources. Thank you.